The implosion of the United States is happening at a breathtaking pace. We got the invasion from the south. We have murder zones in the downtowns of our cities where there is no rule of law. We can't keep our computer systems running without hacks and major failures. We have the collapse of the US dollar out there. At the same time, we have soaring interest rates, declining employment inside the United States. As we look around the world, we see one story after the next that is marking and documenting the collapse of the United States. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and we are covering the news stories that the mainstream media doesn't want to cover. According to them, everything is fine because the right person is in the White House. And if you want to see the propaganda continue, just make sure you get the right person in the White House for the next go-around. That brings us to the question of where did the decline of the United States really start? What threw us down this dark path? Was it the sexual revolution? Perhaps it was the political arrogance that dragged us into Vietnam. Perhaps it was when prayer was removed from schools. Or perhaps when we discussed nationally whether Bill Clinton technically lied. I don't know. Perhaps it was the unchained bloodlust of the United States after 9/11. Or even the institution of baby murder inside the United States. But truthfully, probably, it wasn't any one single thing, but rather the decline is whole cloth. The moral decline has led the financial decline, which has led to the failures of institutions, from churches to marriage to just the basic family structure. Even the basic understanding of scientific facts like, chromosomes. I know, we can't talk about that. We have to trust the experts. And the experts, of course, are being paid to forget important things like safety, protocols, and basic things like chromosomes. We have generations of doctors being indoctrinated with all these false, insane propaganda pieces. Can you even get good quality medical care anymore? It's hard to find because most doctors have become bureaucrats who are more interested in avoiding a lawsuit than they are in actually healing you. Don't believe that's true? Why is it that nobody can give you a straight answer except a specialist has to see you? Basic conversations, basic issues. Can't have those addressed. MedExpress these days and the other places like that, they can't do anything for you except refer you to a specialist and start the paperwork processing for your insurance company. That's really what they are. They're just the front office for the medical industrial complex. And it's scary because isn't that where we're going to go to when we have health issues and we need help? Watching my father go through his battle with cancer through the system. It was frustrating and scary. The disease is scary enough itself. You don't really need some bureaucracy getting in the way and causing even more problems, do we? I don't think we do. And yet that's the kind of situation we have. We see the United States excellence in decline out there. Look no further than the Olympics. We used to dominate in basically every category. But the United States yesterday didn't win a single gold medal. We got some second, third place prizes, but those are not quite participation trophies. But the simple fact is that when you have countries like Japan outperforming the United States by a wide margin, you have to ask yourself the question, why? Why is it that we seem to be incapable of the excellence that we so recently were able to do? Our innovation is falling apart. If it weren't for SpaceX, the United States would be the laughingstock of the world. SpaceX is the outlier of the U.S. space industry. They weren't even supposed to succeed. The industry insiders were like, they'll never succeed. And so it was supposed to be the Boeing Starliner that was going to take us back to the International Space Station after, the space shuttle. Like, we haven't had a spacecraft from the space shuttle to the Starliner, which is still not even ready. We have a Starliner parked at the International Space Station for the past, almost 55 days? Because it broke. The two U.S. astronauts that rode it up to the International Space Station weren't able to move in to dock with the International Space Station at first because their thrusters were failing. They eventually did a risky maneuver to dock it with the International Space Station, which violated protocols. And they've been stranded for 55 days on the International Space Station while technicians on the ground try to figure it out. That's concerning. When you look at how much money has gone into the development of this thing, you start having to ask the question, if companies like Boeing can't make that, what's the quality of our nuclear arsenal? You start hearing all the stories about the F-35 multi-role fighter bomber, and it syncs up. The disastrous rollout of the Starliner sounds so very familiar to the disastrous rollout of the F-35. Oh, sure, it's advanced, but it just doesn't work. And that's a problem. It has reliability issues. We can't get parts to fix the things. The simple fact is when we start talking about how many of them are actually mission capable at any given time, and it's scarily low. Sure, we got lots of them, and sure, they're high tech, but the simple fact is that while we were investing hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars into building a fighter jet that radar can't see, places like Russia and China were dumping hundreds of millions of dollars, instead of hundreds of billions of dollars, into just upgrading their radar systems. Oops. And we are well aware of the fact that Russian radar tracking systems can spot the F-35. And we believe that Chinese radar systems can spot the F-35. So we've just spent trillions of dollars inventing a fighter jet you can't see, and our enemies have just upgraded their glasses. And now they can see them. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect or foolproof or whatever, but the simple fact is we designed it so that they couldn't see it, and now it's just a little harder for them to see it. And this is just evidence of things out there. Back during World War II and in the days after that, we could cobble something together. We have a problem, we could hammer out a solution, we could come up with ideas, we could manufacture them, and boom, out there. But the simple fact is when we have our fighter jet, our premier fighter jet, the F-35, with components made in China, and many more components made all over the world in other countries. We don't even control the supply chain on our fighter jets or our missiles. The fact that we need Chinese components to put missiles together that we're planning on sinking Chinese ships with should give you pause. Because I promise you that the Chinese missiles that they'll be firing at our ships don't have U.S. components in them. This is just one of many recent failures. Remember the Gaza pier? We spent $500 million putting a frickin' pier out there instead of just driving some trucks across the border. And it never worked. And now it's just a disastrous failure that we're pulling out of the water and trying to salvage anything we can of that. Remember our disastrous pullout of Afghanistan? How did we get beaten by guys living in their caves with their assault rifles? I thought that if you didn't have the fighter jets and you didn't have the tanks, you couldn't possibly stand up to the U.S. military. Well, they did. And a lot of that comes back to the rules of engagement. A lot of that comes to why were we there in the first place. I know we're defending democracy. Well, the dictatorship over there kind of points to the fact that we kind of failed at that. Just like the dictatorship in Iraq points to the fact that we failed like that. They're now a puppet state of Iran. We literally kicked out the guys that hate Iran at great cost to the United States and replaced them with people who would bow down and kiss the feet of Iran. And now Iran's moving its missiles driving them right across Iraq into Syria and into Lebanon so that they can attack a major U.S. ally. Why is it that everywhere we go, we make things worse for everybody on the ground, and then in addition to that, we tend to set up the chessboard of the world so that we're at a disadvantage? U.S. excellence is in major decline. We're putting missiles on the border of Russia, nuclear missiles. We want to put nukes in Germany. We got tanks rolling into eastern Poland, right up against the Belarusian border, right up against the Russian border. What would we do if Russia or China started building military bases with tanks right up against our Mexican border? Would we kind of take that a little not so well? What would we do if a foreign adversary put nuclear missiles in, say, Cuba? We'd lose our minds. And yet, that's exactly what we're doing to provoke our enemies out there. U.S. moral leadership is in decline. I mean, we're a laughing stock. We're a laughing stock. Everyone sees that we are out there provoking our adversaries. We're provoking Russia. We're provoking China. We're not there trying to have a conversation and try to find a peaceful ways of coexisting. We tell them what we want from them, and they better deliver, or else we're going to go over there and break their stuff. We're going to smash them with sanctions. And that leads us into the U.S. economy. And financial sectors are in massive decline. If you watch the news media, you won't hear that. But the simple fact is that we have less jobs for American citizens than we did 2 years ago. Less American citizens have jobs. A lot more jobs, that have gone to people from other places who are visiting here without papers. Well, friends, if this was an international job fair, well, then we've succeeded. Except for the fact that there's less full-time jobs now than there were 2 years ago. Just think that through. We have a lot more people, but we have less full-time jobs. More and more people are taking a second and third job just to make ends meet. We're not replacing McDonald's workers or jobs with tech and green New Deal jobs. I know we spent trillions of dollars to do the Green New Deal and the infrastructure project. I don't know about you, but how many new bridges have you seen go up recently? You got any new airports that popped up near you? I mean, we spent $2 trillion, but we keep getting stories about how $50 billion went to hook up people with EV chargers or whatever, and they've built like 2. We have the Internet, billions and billions of dollars going into internet infrastructure, and nobody was connected. Didn't help a single person. Oh, it helped the businesses and the corporations out. It was one big slush fund. It was a bailout for big industry, but it didn't do anything for the infrastructure of the United States. How is it that we can pile up trillions of dollars, set it on fire, and get absolutely nothing for it? Less U.S. citizens' jobs, less full-time jobs. Warren Buffett out there just dumped 71 million shares of Bank of America stock. He's concerned about the banking system. We've been talking about that. We've been talking about how they've been covering up the massive, devastating losses that these banks are piling up on their balance sheets, and they're just hiding it. An accountant by trade. Friends, I know what they're doing. They're pretending like they haven't taken these massive losses. They're like somebody with a stock portfolio of $100,000, and it's now showing on the screen $500, but they're like, as long as I don't sell, I haven't lost any money. Well, technically, tax-wise, yeah. But I think we can recognize that you're $99,500 poorer. That's the reality of the situation. And the simple fact that you're out there borrowing money against your $100,000 stock portfolio, that's worth $500 now, is a systemic banking crisis waiting to happen. That's what they were doing with the housing mortgages in 2008. And we're not talking about housing mortgages anymore. We're talking about stocks. We're talking about treasury bills. We're talking about things that have definitely gone down in value. The federal government is paying out a lot more interest today. Do you want to buy a treasury bill that's giving you under 1% interest? You'd be a fool to buy that, wouldn't you? You're going to demand a whole lot of premium on that in order to take that bill off somebody's hands, especially if it's like a 30-year bill or a 20-year bill. 20-year bill at like under 1%, like when I can just go out there and dump my money in a savings account and get 2.5%, like you got to be insane. They have massive losses. They have office buildings that are just plumb empty with billions of dollars owed on it. What happens next, friends? Well, it's pretty obvious. The United States is in absolute collapse. If we drove down to Fort Knox and peeked into the vault, I can almost guarantee you it's empty. We say we have wealth, we say we have all this, but it's become an absolute farce. And the world gets it. The world understands it. The world thinks that we're a joke. They're laughing at us. Over in Singapore, over in Japan, even the Philippines get it. Countries in South America realize that the United States is not going to protect them anymore, which is a wake-up call for them. Countries in Europe are starting to realize that the United States might not be capable of protecting them anymore. And that's got them concerned. The simple fact that the United States is more concerned about building expensive weapons so that the military-industrial complex can make money than it is in actually winning a war. The U.S. Congress actually just did a study as to whether the United States military is capable or is ready for war, and the answer was no, it's not. That we're so dependent upon systems built in the 90s and the 80s. If you want to take a tour of the Minuteman launch sites, from the pictures that have been released, the operational Minuteman nuclear missile sites are still using the same tech that the decommissioned ones were. We're talking about 70s tech. 70s computer systems and electric systems. And the scary thing about this is the UK went out there and took one of its nuclear missiles out of the silo and test fired it. Basically, using the same kind of designs that the United States were. It's been in storage, similar to like a lot of the Minuteman missiles. Failed to launch. Failed to launch. This is one of those missiles that's been sitting in a silo ready to launch against the Russians. If they had pushed the button, it wouldn't have gone off. Or rather, it did go off, but like, it didn't travel to where it was supposed to. It kind of had a rapid, unscheduled disassembly mid-air. And the United States is scared to test our missiles because we're afraid ours will do the exact same thing, and that would kind of have a non-deterrence effect. If we push the button, if Sleepy Joe pushes the button, how many of those missiles will actually make it to Russia to be intercepted by their missile defense systems? Now, the United States developed this missile defense system. They said hitting a bullet with another bullet is, that's really hard. So how about we just detonate a nuclear weapon in the path of that bullet? Then you don't really have to be too close. You can just be in the general area. That's what the Nike missile sites across the United States were. The United States said, done with that. We cannot hit ballistic missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles on reentry coming into the United States with a nuclear payload. We can't intercept them. We don't have anything that can. I know people out there like, yeah, we do. I've heard from enough military people that when it comes to intercontinental ballistic missiles, the United States doesn't really have anything that can stop them consistently. We have a couple things that will try to shoot down a North Korean missile. The only reason why we can shoot down North Korean missiles is because North Korean missiles can't actually make it to the United States still, which is a relief to us, right? But the Russians have missile defense systems because they still have the nuclear weapon that can knock missiles out of the sky. They have a whole bunch of them, all ringed around Moscow to protect Moscow from and their nuclear missile sites in central Russia. They have a good chance of shooting down a whole bunch of our missiles. How many of our missiles are actually going to get off the ground? I don't know. They're awfully old. And that's something we need to be thinking about. The United States is not nearly as strong. I believe firmly in the principles and what this flag stands for. But the country that this flag represents is not doing so well. It's not healthy. And it's sad. It's troubling. It's heartbreaking. And how fast the collapse is happening is downright scary. So what do we do in response to that? And that's the big question. What do we do in response to that? The answer is we need to look to ourselves, look to our neighbors. You need to take care of yourself because help is not coming from Washington, D.C. Help is not coming from the national level. Tyranny may be coming from those places, but not help. Your tax dollars are not going to come back to you to help you. That's the simple facts. We need to watch out for ourselves and watch out for our neighbors. Pray. Build those relationships with others. And get your boots pulled up because there's hard work to be done. All right, friends. Thanks so much for joining with us. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.